The motivation comes from the understanding, because if you develop a deep enough understanding of what the truth is, what the reality of it is, you start to feel inspired, you start to feel motivated, because there is a possibility that allows you to be relieved from being stuck in a limited experience of yourself as a person. Well, that's a good point. It's not intentionally ignored. It's not consciously ignored. And one of the reasons that it is ignored is because, as you said, it doesn't show up. Who you are doesn't show up. It's not physical. It can't be seen. It can't even be known. Can't even be known. It can only be directly experienced. But even that is not an accurate description of it, because it can't even be directly experienced, because that would imply that there is an experiencer and an experience. And in the case of the self, in the case of what you are, there is not an experiencer and an experience, there is only an experience. Right? And so this makes it start to become esoteric. Right? This is where it starts to become mystical, and it's easy to get magical about it and everything. But that's a pitfall. That's a pitfall, because what is obvious is not magical. What is obvious. It's who you are and who I am is as obvious and real as the floor that we are standing on. It's as obvious and real as all of that. But its obviousness and the reality of it will not present itself to you. Do you understand? Its obviousness will not present itself to you. It won't present itself to you because it's always present. It's not something that's going to happen, it's something that's always happening, right? So it's not going to present itself to you, therefore you have to look for it. You have to look, and that's why in meditation, we're training you to pay attention. Why? So you can use it. Attention is a tool. We're paying you to pay attention. You're training you to pay attention so you can use it. And when you begin to consciously be aware of your attention and consciously use attention, it opens up the possibility that you can start to notice the awareness that is aware of what you're attending to. You follow me? If you develop your ability to consistently pay attention, it opens up the possibility, it makes it easier for you to notice the awareness that is using the attention to see what it's looking at. So, the most important thing, maybe the most important thing of all in terms of meditation, is your motivation. Because unless you're sufficiently motivated, there is no possibility of success. Why? Because your mind, the voice in your head, right, has got such a habitual relationship with you. You've got such an habitual way of identifying with the voice in your head, right, that it's going to happen, and everything that goes along with that is going to happen in terms of your perception being a perception that it is determined by the way you feel, is determined by your past, and so forth. All of that continues to happen all the time automatically, like a program running, right? And so until and unless you start to consider the possibility that there's something other than that, and start to practice meditation, start to pay attention, and start to be open to that possibility, inspired by that possibility, and really looking consciously and intentionally at awareness itself, until that happens, you and most of humanity will stay in the dark. Because it's not something that's going to happen to you. See, it's not awakening and awareness and the understanding and experience of what you actually are, it's not something that's going to happen to you. That's not going to happen to you. See, if you say it's going to happen to you, then there's the awareness and there's you. And one of the things that comes along with the teaching with this is that there is nothing but awareness. It's non-dual. There is no awareness and you. There's only awareness. And the you that you consider yourself to be, right, is nothing other than an idea that got generated early on in life. And that idea became so habitual and so consistent and so much a fact of reality in the conditioned world in which we live, that it was unquestioned, totally unquestioned. So the most important thing is the motivation, because it's going to take your motivation in order to deal with the challenge. And to sit in the formal practice of meditation is challenging. To do it consistently every day, you're coming up against your mind, right? That's why, the answer to the question, why am I not meditating consistently every single day the way I know it works, is because your mind is still determining your life. That's the answer to that question. Your mind is still determining your life. Because if you know something is in your best interest, right? If you know something is in your best interest, and you know not only is in your best interest, but it offers you everything that you could want. It offers you everything that you want. If you know something is in your best interest and it offers you everything that you could want, then the only way you could not do what it takes to have that, right, is if you were unable to act in your own best interest, right? The only way you couldn't do what it takes to have that is if you were unable to act in your own best interest. And the reason you're unable to act in your own best interest is because your mind and your brain is programmed to survival, not for happiness. So if you want to be happy, you're going to have to wake up and see another possibility, not the one that we already have, which is a brain and a mind that's fear-based, a brain and a mind that is committed to survival above and beyond everything else. So if you pay attention, you'll notice that in your relationships, in your work life, in your relationship to your body, if you really look and see what kind of behavior is being generated in relationship to other people, in relationship to your body, and in relationship to work, I promise you, if you look and you really pay attention, you'll see it's survival behavior. What's it going to take for me to survive my marriage? What's it going to take to survive my job? What's it going to take for my body to survive this life, right? It's survival. So the point was brought up about not necessarily practicing formal meditation consistently, but what about this informal practice of meditation where you practice for 5 or 10 seconds at a time, but many times during the day? As far as I'm concerned, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter whether you do formal meditation or you do an informal meditation, because in both cases, you're looking to access the experience of awareness, in both cases. And at some point, even if you are practicing formal meditation, at some point, unless it starts to be integrated with the rest of your life, it's not going to be very valuable. So your practice, your spiritual practice, and your psychological experience, and your experience of your day-to-day life has to become one thing. Has to become one thing. And if it becomes one thing, then the informal practice of meditation makes a lot more sense. Because what we're after here is for the time to come when meditation would be irrelevant. Meditation would be unnecessary. If you're constantly awake, if you're constantly aware, that means that you are meditating all the time. If you're constantly awake and constantly aware, that is what meditation is. Because the definition of meditation, as far as I'm concerned, that's the only one that matters, is the experience of self. It's the experience of what you really are as awareness itself. That's the whole point of meditation. And so if you can do it informally, and you can put post-its around, and you can put ways of reminding yourself to take 5 or 10 seconds to just focus on awareness, focus on your breath, focus on awareness, and you do that as many times as you can during the day, and you're doing it because you're motivated to be awake, that's a good thing. Yeah, and high-performance sports players, and I've often said this here, high-performance sports players are meditating when they're playing at that level. They're meditating when they're playing at that. Why? Because at that level of the game, it's not about it's not about your body learning how to do it better. That's what you practice for, right? No. When you're on the field and you're in the game, right, you're not practicing anymore, right? Now you're in the game, and the most important aspect of your experience when you're in the game, when you're on the field, is your awareness, right? What will the coach say? Keep your eye on the ball. It doesn't matter whether it's a football, a tennis ball, or a baseball. Keep your eye on the ball. Because in the game is not where you practice. In the game is where you focus your attention on the ball and then just let your body do what you practice doing. And so you can anything that you do at a high level of performance will involve meditation. Long distance runners, high performance players, whether it's football, baseball, it doesn't matter what it is. Race car drivers, if you're driving a car at 230 miles an hour, you're paying attention. Or you're not driving that car very long for 230 miles an hour, right? So the motivation, right? If you find it difficult to meditate consistently, formally or informally, then I say you need to focus on your motivation. You must be missing something in terms of what there is to understand. That's why in the East, they emphasize the teaching as much as the practice, right? One of the things that I've studied over the recent years is the Vedanta. It's ancient Hindu philosophical teachings. But it's in these teachings, whether it's that teaching or mystical Christianity or Kabbalah, Judaism, Sufism, it's an interesting thing that if you study the teachers of all of these teachings and practices, you start to hear that they are saying the same thing, because there's only one truth. And so this is not a religion. This is about waking up to the truth. It's been mixed with religion in the past, but it's really not, because religion is more about faith and belief. Religion is more about faith and belief, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't know who you are, right, but you have faith in God and you have a belief in God, and you follow the teachings that come from that faith and that belief, that'll help you to live a better life, right? That'll help you to live a better life. But it won't allow you to fulfill on the possibility. That's something that goes beyond belief and faith, right? It goes beyond belief and faith. It becomes a matter of your being the experience of awareness itself. And when you're being the experience of awareness itself, the truth gets revealed to you. What is that saying? Be still, right? Does anybody remember? Be still and know that I am. What? No, be still and know that I am God. Right? Stillness is often compared to the experience of conscious awareness and being awake. Stillness is often compared to that, right? Because in stillness, the stillness is something that is not moving, it's not changing, right? And so we talk about stillness, we talk about the unchanging. The awareness that we are is unchanging, right? It has no form, it has no shape, it doesn't change. And you will never see it, but you will always be it. You will never see it, but you will always be it. So it's a pleasure to be back. For those people who watch the videos, this is the first time we've We've had a teaching class for months now. So it's a pleasure to be back. It's a pleasure to see those of you who are showing up for class. And I hope that you really continue to take the opportunity to grow and learn and develop strong motivation to practice. But it's very important to understand that sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the ground is fine. Moving meditation is fine. The key to meditation is what? Okay, paying attention, but in order to pay attention, what has to be available? The essence of meditation. I have sent you links to the teacher that I've been studying recently, right? This Rinpoche guy, right? Very good. I like this guy because he's like down to earth, right? And he's playful and he has a good sense of humor. What's that? Consistency. No, that's necessary. But without this, there's no meditation. And he says it all the time. The essence of meditation is stillness is a quality. Paying attention is necessary, but you can't pay attention without this. Awareness. Thank you. But you see, look, how long have we been at this, right? How many times have I said that? Probably hundreds of times, right? But you see, the reality of it is that, now watch, the reality of it is that if I say to you, okay, what's the essence of meditation? You go into your little kid in school at your desk, don't you? You become the little kid at the desk that's afraid you're going to get the wrong answer. And so you go into your head and you start thinking, okay, well, let's see, what's the right answer? You know, should I say this? Should I say that? And because you go into this reaction, you lose contact with the obvious. Because after you answer the question, right? After you answer the question and you said the essence of meditation is awareness, right? Isn't it obvious? Has to be awareness. The essence of everything is awareness. Without awareness, there's nothing. Right? Without awareness, there's no life. Without awareness, you're not here. So it has to be the essence of meditation. And that's why the meditation teacher that I've been studying recently, I love this little example that he gives to people to try and get it across to them what the essence of meditation is. When he asks them, how many of you know you're aware? And he has people raise their hand. Remember this? How many of you know you're aware? And people raise their hand. How many of you are sure that you're not aware? And they raise their hand. And how many people don't know? And they raise their hand. Right? But you see, he's playing a mind trick. He's sucking you in. Right? Because it's not a question of whether you're aware and you know you're aware, or you're aware and you know you're not aware, or you're aware and you're not sure if you're aware. It's a question of whether you're aware. But in all three of those cases, you're aware. See? So when you're sitting in meditation, if you want to know if you're meditating, if you want to know if you're succeeding at practicing meditation, all you have to do is look and see, am I aware? If there's thinking happening, am I aware that there's thinking? Or am I lost in thought? You see what I'm saying? Mostly we're lost in thought. Mostly we don't know we're thinking when we're thinking. Do you know that? Mostly you don't know you're thinking when you're thinking. Because it's such a habit to think and identify with the thinking, right? That it doesn't even occur to you that you're thinking. Now, of course, one of the things that I've said here again and again and again is that one of the benefits of practicing meditation is the discovery that you're not thinking. You never were thinking. You never will be thinking. So curiosity is also an important aspect of this, right? To be motivated and to be curious about what is real and what is true as far as reality is concerned. The awareness that you are has an infinite intelligence. That's called wisdom. And so if you meditate consistently, you start getting smarter, right? Wiser. If you meditate consistently, you start getting wiser because you're getting access to an intelligence that is unlimited. And because that's the case, you'll find yourself coming up with things, seeing things, doing things differently that you didn't experience before. So that's one of the benefits. So the psychological experience that you have and the spiritual experience that you have through the process of meditation become one thing. The psychological experience you have and the spiritual experience you have through meditation become one thing. So that the person that you considered yourself to be, right, starts to go through a metamorphosis, like the butterfly, like the moth to the butterfly. The person that you've been being starts to go through a metamorphosis where, because of your discovery of yourself as awareness itself, the person that you thought was all that you were starts to go through an evolution and starts to become alive and awake and powerful and effective and happy, right? So one of the mistakes that I think a lot of spiritual teachings leave people with is the idea that, you're not a person, and so you're going to become the awareness and stop being a person. That's a mistake. Don't make it. Don't make that mistake. You're not going to stop being a person. You're going to continue to be a person, but the person that you continue to be over time as you practice meditation and practice being awake, the person that you are will become the consciousness in time. The person that you are will become the consciousness in time. It always was the consciousness, but once it's discovered that that's the case, right, it will start to have an effect on the person. The person will start to know itself as something beyond what it thought it was. The person will start to know itself as something beyond what it thought it was. And when that starts to happen, you start to see new possibilities. You start to behave in ways that you weren't able to behave before. And life starts to be a different experience. So let's do a practice. See, one of the things that you get from the practice of meditation is you become able to be aware of the conditioning, be aware of the voice in your head, and watch it run like a program. And especially at times when you, in the past, didn't know that it was a program and you were identified with it and you were doing what it told you to do, you were seeing what it said you were seeing. And of course, if you look back, probably you're just like me. There were many times in your life when you were making a lot of trouble when you were doing that. Coming from survival, reacting, coming from anger, coming from your emotions. So this is about allowing yourself to be free. And the interesting thing is that the freedom is natural. Just a discovery of your ability to be with all these changes, when things are up and down. You can stay present to the whole thing the whole time. And when you're staying present to the whole thing the whole time, that presence and that consistency is an experience that's fulfilling and inherently satisfying. That's what you'll see to be so. You can use negative emotions as a tool by training yourself to be aware when you become upset. Right? Because why? Because when you become upset, that's when you are most likely to cause trouble, right? So if you train yourself to become aware when you become upset, and when you become upset, train yourself to go to the breath, to become aware of the sensations in the body, to become aware of the thoughts and the feelings that are occurring, but to know the difference between who you think you are in relationship to all that and who you actually are as awareness. So that there's more space, there's more freedom, that you're not automatically acting out what's happening in the mind or the body. So that can be very powerful, because then you're waking up when it's important to be awake. You know, you're waking up when you need to be awake. So that's a good way of practicing, is to train yourself to notice when you're upset. Your awareness is never upset.